Bojo Kanoya, a pegish imnoya yeg pane. We here at Nishnaabemwin Nipissing believe peer review is an important process in the education process. However, due to lack of speaker accessibility, scheduling, and these lessons being produced by second language learners, we tend to make mistakes in how Nishnaabemwin is represented. We encourage you to think with a critical mind when watching our videos and question the validity of something said in the video that catches your attention. We are language learners and naturally don't know what we don't know. We don't discourage others from helping us out by educating us, and if you see a mistake you would like us to rectify, you can do so by contacting the email in the video description. We also ask for your patience in waiting for edits, because it is a long process to edit mistakes we share in our videos, and there is the possibility that it might not align with the speakers of Nipissing First Nation. Miigwech bisinduyang, wewe nog nawam damuk.
On in Bojo Kanoya, Mr. McLeod Mondiamina, Bajinaka Queen Monim. I just want to let you guys know that links to the dictionary, PDFs to the worksheet, audio files are in links in the description of this video, as well as any other resources that'll help you out with this lesson will eventually be there as soon as I'm done making them. Aho, miigwech.
On in Bojo, Mr. McLeod Mondaya, Mr. McLeod here, and today's lesson will be VII C-form sentences. Learning how to ask who and what questions and turn verbs into nouns. This lesson will be a changing of the leaves. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Lesson itinerary. Recap on verb forms A through C. Initial change. Western versus Eastern initial change. Functions of C form. Realized after. C form features. C form practice. Translating a C form inflection. Recap on verb forms. A form are independent clauses, are plain sentences that make sense on their own without further information. For example, the box is broken. Mkuk biegska. B form, our dependent clauses, are phrases that sound incomplete on their own without further information. For example, if the box is broken, gishben mkuk biegskog. C form is our last form that I know of we will cover, and it has a few functions. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. All right, let's move on. Initial change. Initial change is where we change the first vowel sound of the prefix if present or a verb to a different sound. A form, biegska mkuk, the box is broken. B form, biegskog mkuk, that the box is broken. C form, bogskog mkuk, the box that is broken. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so you can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. I like to think of initial change like the changing of the seasons. Leaves go from green to orange, red, and brown, and in the summer, trees are back to having green leaves. Hence why the text has been colored with this theme. Green is the unchanged version of the words, and orange highlights the change in vowel sound. Changing the vowel sound can sound like a drastic change, but we do similar things in English, with greater variance and no apparent patterns. At least with Ojibwe, it's just the first vowel sound of the prefix or verb that consistently changes. Throw versus through in English, where we change the first vowel sound of an O sound to an E sound. Know versus knew. Again, we're changing the first vowel sound, the O sound, to an E sound. Run versus ran, where we change the first vowel sound, the U, to an A. Have versus had, where we have something different happening. We maintain the first vowel sound, but we change the consonant at the end. We don't have anything like this in Ojibwe that I know of. Next, in English, we have begin versus begun versus began. Again, we have something different happening here, where we maintain the first vowel sound, but the second vowel sound changes and has multiple sounds it could change too. We have read versus read. This has the first vowel sound changing, but it's spelt the same and the pronunciation is different. Next, we have mouse versus mice, where the vowel sound changes, where the consonant at the end is spelt differently. Next, we have hoof versus hooves. Again, we have another example where the first vowel sound maintains the same sound, but the consonant at the end is pronounced differently and spelled differently. And lastly, my personal favorite, think versus thought, where the only common sound between the two words is the TH at the beginning. Everything else is different. This is just a short list of examples where English has greater variance with their initial change compared to what we do in Ojibwe. Hanging E, also known as the aorist conjunct. The hanging E is a prefix Eastern speakers have adopted in place of Western style initial change from the aorist conjunct. The aorist conjunct is another verb form like be form that serves other functions in dialects that still practice it. It's also acceptable to use the hanging E prefix in place of the rest of the vowel sounds. When you can't find a vowel sound in between a cluster of consonants in a word, use the hanging E. Do not use the hanging E if there is a tense marker present. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Initial change has two styles, Western style and an Eastern style, which is what we will use in this course. It's also imperative that we take note of some prefixes that deviate from our initial change patterns. J is a future tense used in be form, but when initial change is applied to it, it changes to a ge sound. So J will not follow our initial change rules that we are going to cover in this lesson. Just be on the lookout that anytime you have a ge prefix, it could possibly be a J prefix in be form. The prefix be, which means hither or towards me, might also have a change form that's different than the patterns that follow. Currently, this is exclusive to Nipissing dialect, but other dialects might have a changed be form in their own respective dialects. Some verbs or relative roots also have unique change forms. For example, she lives somewhere, da, and its C form version, and dod. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so you can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so you can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Changing single A sound. We'll have our Western style on the left, Eastern style on the right. So when changing to C form, we need to start in B form. For Western style, they'll pronounce this word zanagug, and for Eastern style, they'll pronounce it znagug. For Eastern style, we're going to bring back that de-stressed A sound because that's what we're going to apply initial change to, where we change the first vowel sound in our verb. So you can see here, both dialects or styles change that first A sound to an E sound, but Eastern style will do another change. Because of syncopation rules, we need to de-stress that A sound. Also in Eastern style, we can use the hanging E or aorist conjunct form in place of initial change. So Western style C form for this word will be pronounced zenagug, and Eastern style will be pronounced zengug or eznagug. Initial change for double A sound. Both dialects will pronounce this word the same way in their B forms. Audok seg. In the Western style, you can see that audok seg in B form became a yadok seg in C form. And in the Eastern style, audok seg became audok seg in C form. Changing the E sound. Both styles will pronounce this word bedweweg in B form. And in C form, we can see that Western style changed bedweweg to bayedweweg. Eastern style changed B form bedweweg to ebedweweg. Changing the single I sound. So from here, we can see that Western style, they don't practice syncopation, so they'll pronounce all their vowel sounds. They pronounce their B form here as gebakosing, whereas in the East, we pronounce it gebok-sing. And in Eastern style, we're going to bring back that A sound because we're going to apply initial change to it. So for both styles, we change that single I sound to an E sound. In Western style C form, that's gebakosing, and Eastern style, gebok-sing. We can also use the hanging E for egg-boxing. Changing the double I sound. So in Western style, they don't de-stress any of their vowel sounds, so they're going to pronounce their verb as bigoshkog, whereas Eastern style, we de-stress that O sound and pronounce it bigshkog. And C form is applied like so. So both dialects change their double I sounds to a double A sound. Western style will pronounce their C form variation as bogoshkog. Eastern style will pronounce their C form variation as bogshkog. Eastern style also has the option of the aorist conjunct or hanging E, and they'll pronounce it as abigshkog. Changing the single O sound. So in Western style, their version of this verb is ozawog, and in Eastern style, we have sawog. In Eastern style, we have that O sound, but it's de-stressed. But when we apply initial change, we need to do it to that O sound that's still associated with the root word. So we bring back that O sound and we'll apply initial change rules as instructed here. So Western style, C form of this word is wezawog. Same with the Eastern style, wezawog. And in Eastern style, we can also just use the E sound in place of the we sound and pronounce it ezawog. This is another example of why it's important to be familiar with the full vowel versions of our words so that we can do initial change properly. And lastly, changing the double O sound. Both dialects pronounce this B form verb the same way. No ding. In Western style, the C form version of this verb is ding, and in Eastern style, the C form version is ding, where we use the hanging E and maintain the vowel sound. Western style initial change. If you'll notice, we have the sign up, meaning that our note takers should write everything down from this slide in their notes before moving on to the next. So A sound changes to an E sound, just like zanagug, change to zanagug. Double A sound changed to aya sound. Adoxeg became ayadoxeg. E changes to aye. Just like bedweweg became bayedweweg. Single I changed to an E sound. Just like gebako sing turned to gebako sing. Double I changed to a double A sound. Just like we have bigoshkog turned to bogoshkog. Single O changed to a we sound. Just like how we have ozawog turned to wezawog. And lastly, double O changed to a wa sound. Just like we had no ding changed to nwa ding. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so you can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Eastern style initial change. And if you'll notice, we have the sign up, meaning that our note takers should write everything down from this slide in their notes. So a single A sound will either change to an E, or you can use the hanging E prefix. Znagug will become zengug when we change the A to an E sound. Or we can use the hanging E prefix instead, esnagug. Double A sound will maintain and we'll use the hanging E prefix. That's how we go from adoxeg to adoxeg. We will maintain that E sound, but add the hanging E prefix in front of our verb. Just like bedweweg will become ebedweweg. Single I sound will either change to an E sound, or we can use the hanging E in place of initial change. And go from boxing to geboxing. We also have the hanging E option and pronounce it egg boxing. Double I can become a double A sound, or we can use the hanging E in place of initial change. Biegskog will become bogskog, or we can use the hanging E prefix, ebiegskog. Single O sound can become a we sound or an S sound, or we can use a hanging E prefix in place of initial change. Zawog will become wezawog, or ezawog. And lastly, double O will maintain that sound and use a hanging E prefix. Noding will become anoding. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so you can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down in their notes. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. C-form functions. C-form has a few functions that I can educate you on. In English, we attach the suffix er to a verb to change a verb to a noun. This is how English inflects its verbs in the nominal form. For example, you take the verb fight and add an ER to make it fighter, someone who fights. In Ojibwe, that process is similar. Migaza is she or he is fighting, whereas emigazud or magazud is fighter, someone who fights. The nominal form is when a verb functions as a noun, like in the example above where we took the verb fight and modified it into a noun, fighter. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. One of C-form's functions is to provide a nominal form where a verb functions as a noun. Biegschabemkuk means the box is broken. Ich bin biegschabemkuk means if the box is broken. Bogschkog or ebiegschabemkuk means the box that is broken. Here our verb functions as a noun. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Here we have the sign up, meaning that our note takers should write everything down from this slide in their notes before moving on to the next. C form is used for grammar patterns like what. Here we have our grammar pattern for what, which is wagnen plus C form. Wagnen ebigskog or wagnen bogskog means what is broken. This particular grammar pattern implies that the answer will be an inanimate noun, so we will be using this grammar pattern for this lesson's work. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Grammar patterns like who also use C form. For the grammar pattern, who is wanen plus C form. Wanen emgishing, who is falling. This particular grammar pattern implies that the answer will be an animate noun, so we will not be using it for this lesson's work. C form is also used for grammar pattern realized after. Grammar pattern after is C form. So here we have ga bangziyan, after I was dry. This reference is taken from Gawin Gindason in Dowsey 2019, page 6. Another example, Chiketin gabapid, after he laughed real hard. This reference is taken from Ektawad Gekajik, 1993, page 7. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so you can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Realized after. In Ojibwe, we have two different types of after, realized and unrealized. Simply, unrealized after is generally expressed with a B form future tense inflection. Jibigskog means after it breaks. Simply, realized after is generally expressed with a C form past tense inflection. Gabogshgog, after it broke. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. Here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. If a verb doesn't have a natural endpoint, examples like falling or weather words do not imply when the action is finished or completed, we include a schwa prefix to imply that there is an endpoint, which contributes to the after translation. Without the prefix schwa, these endless verbs translations do not articulate after, but something else. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. B form future tense without schwa. Jim Gising, when it'll fall. Unrealized after, because schwa. Just schwam Gising, after it'll fall. C form past tense without schwa. Gam Gising, the one that fell. Realized after because schwa. Ga schwam Gising, after it fell. C form features. C form has some key features that differentiate itself from A and B form. C form uses initial change on either the prefix or verb. C form uses most of the same suffixes as B form. C form negative uses the same suffixes as B form negative. C form uses a different suffix than B form when we put verbs in their nominal plural form, changing a verb to multiple nouns doing the same action, the ones that. All our VII words will use the suffix gin in place of our B form G suffix for nominal plural form. Here we have all the words highlighted for our fill in the blankers to include in their note accommodations. Please pause the video here so they can write them down. And here we have all the points for our note takers to write down. Again, pause the video here so they can record these in their notes. All right, let's move on. Rules about initial change for Nipissing dialect. Initial change affects the first vowel sound in either the verb prefix, tense marker, or other prefixes, or the verb if there's no prefix. So we'll have three categories here: full vowel form on the far left, B form in the middle, and C form on the right. We're going to have the full vowel form so we can see all the vowel sounds and decipher which one we need to change in order to go from B form to C form appropriately. We have big oshka or big shka. And we have it in B form, big shka nig. So we have the double I sound underlined here, meaning we're going to change that sound for C form. And we have two examples because double I can change to double A, or we can use the hanging E in place of initial change. Bogshka nig or ebigshka nig. Next we have bim gisin. And in B form we have bim gisin zinug. We have that first I sound in the prefix underline, which is what we can apply initial change to. The C form versions are bum gisin zinug or ebim gisin zinug. Next, we have gim jaquad, and we have a de-stressed I sound near the front of the verb. A B form inflection we're going to use is gimjakwasnug. And its C form, because we're doing initial change to the tense marker, is gamjakwasnug. Next, we have this full vowel form, onjidkoya. And in B form, we pronounce this njidkoyog. Now, if we look at the full vowel form, we can see that there's an O sound that's normally de-stressed at the very front of the prefix that we need to apply initial change to. And O sound will change to wenjitkoyog is the C form version of this word. Next, we have gi unje jibabte. And in B form, we pronounce this ginje jibabteg. So we have that double I sound in the first prefix underlined for our initial change to be applied. Ga nje jibabteg. So we can see here that we just do initial change to the first prefix in our verb phrase. Next, we have moshknemgud with a de-stressed I sound in the middle. And in B form, we have moshknemganig. We have that double O sound underlined for our initial change. So moshknemganig will become moshknemganig. Double O doesn't change, we just use a hanging E prefix. Next, we have jesin. And a B form version we're going to use is jesinzinig. Now we have our j sound underlined, so we're going to do initial change to that for C form. And it will become gejesinzinig. Next, we have abois, which has no de-stressed vowel sounds. So we're going to do initial change to our ah sound in aboig. And it will become aboig because we don't change the double A sound. We just use a hanging E prefix. Next, the full vowel form of this word is gebakosin. And in B form, the version we're going to be using is geboksinzinig. So for C form, we need to do initial change to the first vowel sound in the word, which is that de-stressed I sound in the front after the G. And we have two versions. We have geboksinzinig or egboksinzinig in C form. Next, we have wizokpu. And then in B form, we have wizokpug. Again, we're changing the first vowel sound in the verb or prefix, and we have the double I underlined. So in C form, we're going to pronounce this wazokpug. Next, we have getche micha in full vowel form. The B form version we're going to be using for this activity is chimchog. And we're going to be doing initial change to the first vowel sound in this, which is that I sound right after the G under our full vowel form section. Now we have two examples here. We can either use get chimchog or use the hanging E prefix, egg chimchog. The last one here has a lot of short vowel sounds in it for stressing and de-stressing. Ijenekade. The B form version we're going to be using is jinkadesninig. Now we're going to be doing initial change, which again, we're going to do the first vowel sound in the verb, which is an de-stressed I sound hidden at the beginning of the verb. Ejnikadesninig is the C form version for this word. Figuring out C form translations. The example we're going to be doing here is Kwezigwengin. What does it mean? Because in C form, we're changing the first vowel sound and adding a B form or gin suffix, we will not find examples like Kwezigwengin in the dictionary. We have to reverse the initial change that's applied and then subtract either the B form or gin suffix that's attached to the end of the verb. Let's first reverse the initial change according to our initial change pattern, which change sound can be found in Gwezigwengin. Where do we see an orange combination of letters in the verb Gwezigwengin? Here's the most likely option. The WE sound can be found here. So this WE is probably an O sound. We have a WE sound, which originally was an O sound, so we are left with gzighuangin. When we have a short vowel followed by a single consonant and then followed by another short vowel, for example, G, and then we have our short vowel O, single consonant Z, Z, and then another short vowel sound E, guangin, we de-stress the first short vowel in that sequence. So gzighuangin will become gzighuangin without the O. Lastly, let's decipher what the suffix is and how it contributes to the translation. Our B form positive options are g, nig, or ig. Our B form negative options are snug, zinug, sninig, or zinig. These should include the word not in your translations. And our C form plural nominal option is gin. Which one of these suffixes do we see at the end of our word? Gin. Gin at the end. It must be our C form plural nominal option. So our suffix is gin, which means those things that are verb. Separating the suffix and what is left is our version of the verb that can be found in the dictionary, gzigwan. And in our dictionary, gzigwan means heavy or it is heavy. Altogether, gwazigwangin means those things that are heavy. Recap. C form is how we convert verbs into nouns, say after, and use the grammar patterns like who and what, and probably has other functions Mr. McLeod missed or doesn't know. For C form, we use initial change rules established earlier in the lesson. Most C form inflections use the same suffix as B form. Misaye aja. That's it for now. If you have any additional questions about the work and assignments for this lesson, please check the video I made here modeling how to answer each question in the worksheet. Check out this playlist for a visual medium of our audio files that comes with hand gestures to help you better understand how best to write and format these lessons. Again, we have links to the lesson PowerPoint, worksheet, audio files, additional resources, and a contact email in the description below. You can submit questions to or help point out any inaccuracies you noticed in our videos. Kachimi gwachmina.